tank exists and moves in a valuable test environment. This is the test environment. We have the player tank in green, enemy tank in red. The player can collide with all the walls. It can get over these small ridges in the ground with no problem. It can push around the enemy tank, which currently doesn't move. Player input in player controller. So the player controller is this script here. And the player's input is through these get keys and get key down for WASD and space. The movement is in a separate tank, mover, or pawn. The tank mover script is here. It actually controls any of the physical movement. These functions are triggered through the tank controller. Does the mover functions. And tank mover can be used for any tank object. The movement uses character controller.simplemove. That is probably similar to this here. This uses rotate and position movements for any tank in this movement script that you can access through your controller. Movement uses transform.rotate. Transform.rotate is used to rotate the tanks left or right. Tank variables are exposed for designers in separate tank data component. The tank data component contains all the public variables, which are then accessible in any tank in the editor. Shooter component fires shells in the direction that the tank or cannon is facing. As you can see from the AI, it fires where it's facing. If you turn and fire, they will always go where you're facing at that moment. Shooter component is limited in fire rate using one of the timers covered in class. So the timer system, also it gets the direction when you fire from tank shooter. It gives the rotation to the shell and then applies speed and stuff like that. Shells collide. Limited fire rate. So the limited fire rate is actually in tank controller. There's a timer that counts down if it's over 0, and the cooldown is set every time you fire. So if the cooldown is more than 0, you can't shoot. And whenever you shoot, it sets the cooldown up to a number that is in tank data. And you can see that demonstrated by the AI, or if I try to spam. It doesn't work. Okay. Shells collide with other tanks, do damage to other tanks, and track the shooter that fired it. So here, if we click on the enemy tank, we can look right here at the health. It's at 100 right now. If I shoot, it does 20 damage every shot until it destroys the enemy tank. And the same thing will happen if I drive in front of the enemy tank's shots. Boom. And that is covered in the shell behavior. The shell has a parent tank object that is assigned when it's fired, and so that it knows which tank shot it. If it collides with a tank that is not the one that shot it, then it will do damage. It'll check the health. If it's destroyed the tank, it'll give score and then destroy the enemy object. Shells self-destruct after a time or collision with any collider. So on collision with any collider, if it's not the tank that fired them, they will destroy themselves. And then also, they will destroy in their start function. They use the destroy with the delay timer of whatever you set it to in tank data, shell time. Game Manager exists, is a singleton, and allows easy access to tank data components. The Game Manager exists, it is this object here, and has this script here, which has access to the player. And in the future, we'll have access to all enemies, and will control the flow and loop of the game. Bug and error free. There are no script errors in the game. When you collide with anything or do anything, there's no errors to break the game. There are comments in the code. In every important place, it will tell you what is going on, except for very obvious things. Project organization. Project is mostly organized, except for the scene, which would be organized in the future when I have more things. The assets are all organized into folders, and I think I only need a few more subfolders in scripts in the future. And as for the game exceeding minimum requirements, I have a camera follow script, which allows the camera in the game to follow the player. And you could assign this to any AI technically in the future, and the camera would follow them.